Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Just so you guys know, I am on a temporary setup. I did get moved into my new house fully, but my setup is actually not completed yet. A few things got delayed as a result of some weather. So the new studio is still being built out and it will not be done until later next week. But I do want to keep getting videos out there for you guys because I just have a ton of awesome things to share between IEMs and mice and mouse pads. But right here, I do have three 3D printed mice by luceout.com, and a lot of these shapes are things that a lot of you have probably already tried. I have the S2, I have the Aerox 3, and I have the G Pro Superlight, and all three of these are sub 40 grams. All three of these are using the Deluxe M800 Pro PCB, which does have a 3370 sensor. And one of the things that I think is really cool about the PCB is it does have RGB underglow, and you guys can see a little bit there that when it gets a little dark, you can see that RGB underglow actually hitting your pad and kind of shining out from the holes of the mouse. And it actually looks pretty cool. Build quality on all three of these are definitely at a artisanal level. Let's get into it. So for me, one of the things I always have in the back of my head going to a 3D printed mouse is it going to live up to a company like Logitech or Razer's flagship mice? The Viper V2 Pro, the G Pro Superlight, and I am comfortably able to say that my performance on all three of these, I mean, I was playing Overwatch, I was playing Valorant, Apex Legends, testing IEMs, and using all three of these mice was an absolute joy. Being sub 40 grams, I was a little worried about these feeling too light, but between the weight balance, and just how everything feels, and again, we'll get into the build quality and how everything feels on the 3D printed mice in a little bit. But just the performance in Apex was flawless. The performance in Valorant, I didn't notice any click latency that was humanly perceivable from me. And the 3370 sensor on that PCB felt perfectly fine for tracking and for flicking in games like Valorant. Overwatch was a blast. Just so light, so crispy on the Kale 8.0s included on that PCB. I had absolutely no issues with gaming performance on these 3D printed mice. In terms of overall build quality, and I've said it a number of times in the video already, artisanal. And what I mean by that is these builds are literally so flush around each and every edge of the shell where the shell makes contact, the bottom shell with the top shell, etc. Everything is just so clean. There's no excess plastic on any of the holes, and everything just looks so professionally done, especially with the little touches like by Luce here on the bottom kind of engraved into this particular mouse. On the G Pro Superlight, you'll see by Luce engraved on the side. Everything just looks so clean, all the edges, all the holes, everything just looks great. In terms of overall build quality though, just 3D printed mice in general suffer from side clicks that don't necessarily feel as good as a flagship mouse, and or mouse 1 and mouse 2 that don't necessarily feel quite as good as something like a Razer flagship mouse. I mean, you can look at the DeathAdder V3 Pro, and it's not really a good comparison because you really need to compare 3D printed mice with other 3D printed mice. But you have side buttons that are very flush to the shell. They extend and protrude a little bit, and then the pre and post travel is going to be better on mouse 1, mouse 2, mouse 4, and mouse 5 on a actual mouse like this. Going to this 3D printed mouse by Luce, you can see that the side buttons actually protrude quite a bit. And at first I didn't really like that. It is something that you get used to. It's not an issue in any way, shape, or form. You get acclimated to it. But one of the things is, and in particular, if you are just a death gripper and you hit your buttons very hard, there is quite a bit of post travel on mouse 4 and mouse 5, and it will protrude quite a bit into the mouse itself. In terms of mouse 1 and mouse 2, they actually feel great. The Kale 8.0s feel great. The overall click feel feels great, especially with the tool that does come included where you can either loosen or tighten the tensioning system to get a click feel how you like it, which is pretty cool. That also is a feature on the PMM mice, who's also a really good 3D print designer. But mouse 1 and mouse 2, when you push very hard, can actually get pushed down past the part of the shell here. You can kind of see it moving inward. I've learned and kind of become acclimated again to not hit the S2. This is the S2 version of the 3D printed mice. It also happens to me on the Aerox 3 version of the mouse. If you push with a lot of force, mouse 1 can actually go into the shell. It can actually get stuck if you push very, very hard. So there are those issues. In terms of the G Pro Superlight one, though, I can actually not get the mouse to do it, so that one is not really an issue whatsoever. You, again, just have the side buttons that do feel like they have a lot of post travel and move within the shell with quite a bit of force. You do have quite a bit of flex on the top shell, so obviously you don't want to really be pushing in like that because, again, you can see how many holes there are in the 3D printed material is quite a bit more flexy, which probably adds a lot to the weight reduction here. But again, don't play around with that 3D printed material because it is something that does kind of flex and give in certain areas of the mouse. In terms of the stock skates, at least the skates that came on the versions of the mice that I was sent, you can see there are just a few dots. I think these work absolutely fine. They kind of feel pretty good quality. I can't really tell what they are. They kind of feel like Tiger Ice or something of that equivalent. I mean, they're good skates that he put on here, so it's not really an issue. And it does seem as though you could put, larger skates on here if you wanted to. You can see it does have a on-off switch, which is great. You don't have to turn the mouse on with a toothpick like the G-Wolves mice. And then there is a little button here included to swap to Bluetooth mode because the Deluxe M800 Pro PCB actually does have Bluetooth enabled. If you wanted to take one of these to work or use it for, a laptop or whatever Bluetooth device that you have, it is a nice feature. So again, all of these are sub 40 grams. All of them feel extremely good. There are just those few issues, which actually are on a lot of 3D printed mice, not just these. But those are things that I do need to point out in the build of each one of these mice. Now, I know I've pointed out those issues, but I don't really think that the user or the consumer who is looking for a 3D printed mouse is necessarily worried or concerned about those issues. For me personally, I think the purpose of going for a 3D printed mouse is you are an individual who has a shape that you absolutely love, but you want it to be lighter. You want it to have greater performance with a 3370 sensor. I know some of the 3D printed mice now are coming with the G Pro Superlight PCB. And I think, again, just the overall quality in the design, how these feel, how these aesthetically look, Luce has knocked it out of the park. Each and every single one of these is absolutely enjoyable. You get adjusted to being a little bit lighter with them. You get acclimated very quickly. You don't really have an issue with the post-travel of the side buttons or the issue with mouse 1 and mouse 2. And just the weight of these is just so damn good. Luce is an absolute artiste. I know Luce is from Italy. The Italian build quality here, or the Italian eye, has definitely maybe rubbed off. I personally love these, and I think that if you guys are into 3D printed mice, I think you're going to love them as well. And before we close out, guys, I do just need to bring up the price. The base price of the mouse is 150 euros, and he is out in Italy, so shipping is 60 euros to the States. If you guys want to use discount code FRESH10, it gets you 10% off the base price of the mouse, saves you 15 euros. I think, again, if you're somebody who's been waiting for your one particular shape and you're looking for that 3370 performance, you're looking for lightweight, it is definitely something to consider. But if you're on a tight budget, certainly understandable. It is a high asking price, especially if you are living in the States. But all I can speak of is the fact that for 3D printed mice, the build quality here is absolutely beautiful, and Luce has done a phenomenal job. That is it for this review, guys. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.